this round one, but the rest of the team it should be a very interesting matchup. Excited to see how these two players approach things as we're getting ready for the leads.
We can see the start, the classic Torn Urshi. And then we see the Incin Amoonguss, two of the most common pairs in VGC history, at least of recent memory. That Urshifu and Tornadus and the Incin and Amoonguss, both coming out. We'll have to see what ends up coming out of this turn. This Incineroar and the Amoonguss relatively threatened by what's on the field in front of them. That Urshifu pinning the Amoonguss very well, and the Tornadus pinning both the Terra on the Incineroar as well as the Amoonguss itself. We see Anthony considering the Terastallization on both, potentially locking in this Terra Grass.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he
Going
did back out of that one,
yes,
because he was
agreed.
clicking Terra Grass, then fake out into the Urshifu, just allowing for that Bleakwind Storm to come through and be super effective into both Pokemon. But from Anthony's end, a very, very safe turn one. You get to fake out the Urshifu. The Tornadus likely not going to do that much damage, with a spread damage reduction coming on the Bleakwind Storm, and a pretty free Spore, putting that Tornadus right to sleep, just getting the rain up here on turn one.
Yeah, going for the Rain Dance to potentially boost those Surging Strikes coming out of this Focus Sash Urshifu. However, this Amoonguss is now free to just go for Rage Powder in front of the Urshi to make sure that it'll have to take all of that Rocky Helmet damage on each of those Surging Strikes.
Yep, and the Urshifu already with its Focus Sash broken, not going to be the most effective here in this setting. We are going to see the Tornadus, important to note, did not take any turns of sleep on that turn. Switching out for the Indeedee, a little bit more support coming in, but no Protect on the Urshifu's side. Rage Powder comes out. I would imagine it has to be a taunt, right?
Yes. So we'll be seeing the taunt go out into the Amoonguss to make sure that it can only click Sludge Bomb for the foreseeable future. However, the Incineroar will be U-turning on the Indeedee for a considerable amount of chip and take a little bit in return from that Rocky Helmet that's also on the Indeedee, the two redirectors staring at each other with that helmet covered in pebbles.
Yeah, and all in all, a pretty solid turn from Patrick's end. You know, of course, the Tornadus is still going to be asleep whenever it comes back into the game, but you do get your redirector next to your Urshifu. You know that the rain is up. The Amoonguss cannot redirect your Urshifu's attacks this coming turn. You're going to be able to get a pretty strong Surging Strikes off on this turn, or even better, in front of a Porygon 2, just get to taunt that Pokemon.
Just get to taunt it. And we do love to see that. Now, we do have the wonderful choice, and we do see Patrick swapping out this Urshifu. I think neither of us necessarily expecting that play. But very interesting, the Iron Crown coming in, as I do believe that we saw the Porygon lock into its Terastallization and click that Terraflying Terra Blast into Iron Crown, which will be not very effective anymore. A good switch for Patrick to be able to take what could have potentially been a Sludge Bomb and a Terrifying Terra Blast going into that slot, resisting every possible attack, or being immune to it. The Incineroar coming back out, I think maybe calling the Iron Crown coming in, or just trying to get a difference of positioning on the team. But now we've seen all 4 Pokemon coming out of Patrick. As this Terastallization comes out on the Porygon 2, Terraflying going for what I believe to be this Terra Blast going into this Iron Crown. So we'll have to see how much damage this does.
Yeah, of course, that Follow Me coming out from Indeedee. Pretty classic move for that Pokemon to use, and then it will be the Porygon 2 following up the Terra Blast, the only other attack that's going to be clicked this turn from either side. And you can see a very specially defensive Pokemon is Indeedee, but with the +1 to its special attack from the download boost that Porygon 2 got switching in, still a pretty good amount of damage. And now from Anthony's end, with that proactive switch back into the Incineroar, you do have an opportunity to get Trick Room up relatively safely here.
Yeah, and this Iron Crown now deciding to go for its Terra Dragon to make sure that it's not weak to any of the moves that Incineroar would be going for into it. Either that Flare Blitz that would be weakened by the rain, or the knockoff that would be weakened by the Iron Crown not having an item anymore. So definitely Iron Crown looking to not take any damage this turn, hopefully. The Incineroar getting the knockoff into the Indeedee, making sure the Indeedee goes down, so that this Psychic Terrain will be staying, even though the Indeedee's presence there would not change. But this Porygon 2 is now pretty free to go for the Trick Room that it was trying to go for, as the Expanding Force comes out, and will likely do a solid bit of damage to this Porygon 2, but none to the Incineroar, as it is still this Dark type.
Yeah, and now this Porygon 2 under Trick Room, knowing the 4 Pokemon that Patrick has brought to this game, looks extraordinarily threatening.
It does, absolutely.
You hit everything now for super effective damage because the Iron Crown did burn its Terastallization, becoming the Dragon type. You're threatened by a +1 Ice Beam from this Porygon 2. The Urshifu is threatened by the Terraflying Terra Blast, and then, of course, the Sleeping Tornadus in the back. still under threat too. But the Terra Blast this turn launching into the Protect, a great heads-up play there from Patrick. But
Tachyon doing a supplementary 30 damage per hit.
Even with the special attack boost from the Cork Drive, not quite enough. And I think you're finally recognizing what, the rest of us saw there, Calvin, was that the Iron Crown did move before this Incineroar.
Yeah, it did take me a second to notice that. I did mention something about it last turn, but I didn't fully process what had happened there, because I was so surprised by the speed on this Incineroar and the slowness of this Iron Crown in conjunction with each other. But this Ursaluna coming out now, and it's just in full proper form to just start clicking whatever move it wishes to.
Yep, and it will just be the Facade, easily going to be enough to take out the Iron Crown that is no longer made of all that much iron, becoming a Dragon type.
Dragon Crown.
Dragon Crown.
This Terra Blast goes into the Urshifu, and this will be enough damage to pick up the Urshifu, leaving just the guaranteed one turn of sleep on the Torn coming out. It looks like this game is all but over at the very beginning, so we'll be interested to see what Patrick does differently going into Game 2 to sort of swing this matchup back in his favor, because from what we saw, at least at the start of this looked fairly good for Tony here.
Yeah, well, not all that great for Tony, who's on the field right now, but... But I think Patrick did have some advantages that he could have pressed early in that game. We had mentioned the turn that the Urshifu switched out had the opportunity just to get some damage off into the Porygon 2, could, even taunt that Pokemon while the Indeedee redirected on the next turn.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things that a taunt Urshifu specifically can do to really throw off the rhythm and the timing for a Porygon 2 Amoonguss kind of centered game plan.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially I think on the turn where we saw him go for that Terra Dragon, we also saw the Indeedee go for the Follow Me that turn, in sort of a situation where it seemed like the Iron Crown would go from being able to resist the potential follow-up from the P2 to then being neutral or weak to either move the P2 could have gone for. So I think maybe a little proactive use of terrestrialization there from Patrick's side. So I'll be interested to see how he adapts into that going into the next game.
Yeah, I do like the 4 Pokemon that both players brought. I mean, of course, from Anthony's end, you can't get any more classic than Incineroar, Amoonguss, Porygon 2, and Ursaluna.
Tried and true.
His bread and butter, what I called for a long time, my bread and butter, just classic Pokemon pairings there. From Patrick's end, I mean, I think the Urshifu has to come to this matchup, and we are going to see a little bit of a switch up with the double Genie lead, Tornadus and Landorus, coming out on lead for Patrick's side, and I do like this switch up.
Yeah, not the traditional double Genie lead that we've been seeing for a lot of Regulation Ave. It's normally been this Landorus has been its incarnate form, but we've seen popping up of this banded Therian Landorus a lot recently, and it's been very interesting to see the sort of change-up that a lot of people are having for this Pokemon specifically. Now, both sides have gotten intimidated now, so they're both at that -1 attack, though that will be most relevant for the Landorus here.
Yep, we are going to see just a couple of attacks come out. No hard switching this turn, but I'd imagine at least one U-turn coming out from either side. But no, it is just Bleak Windstorm, Earthquake. The Choice Band kind of offsetting that attack drop from Intimidate. It's going to be just a clean knockout into this Incineroar.
Yeah, that Incineroar evidently not one of the most physically bulky Incineroars that I've ever seen, to not be able to take that EQ with a little bit more grace. However, the Porygon 2 able to set up Trick Room here, and the Amoonguss coming out. Kind of a very strong pin here coming out of these two Pokemon. Just being able to Spore and use Ice Beam into one of these, sort of trying to call the Terra on either side, I believe. As both of these Pokemon on Patrick's side could become a Steel type at any moment, and resist everything Porygon 2 is able to put out.
Yep, certainly, and you can see from that turn 1 play kind of giving us a hint at what Patrick might have in the back at, just the amount that he really prioritized getting rid of that Incineroar on the other side, as we do see the Indeedee come out. You have to assume it's going to be the Iron Crown as the 4th Pokemon with, the others that he has brought to this matchup, but still pretty difficult situation to be in, as the Indeedee just going to get put to sleep immediately. A very, very free Spore onto that slot for Anthony, as the Landers couldn't protect, and anything that switches in outside of the Ogerpon's going to just fall asleep to the Spore. And Porygon 2 still has that special attack boost from turn 0.
That it does, and this Spore is pretty free to go into this Tornadus slot, as I don't believe we have any Spore immunities outside of this Ogerpon on Patrick's team. However, I think Patrick would be very hard-pressed to bring the Ogerpon in this matchup. There's so many things that really do threaten it out so well. However, now we will see. We have a relatively free turn ahead of us. This Indeedee is guaranteed to take a turn of sleep here, and this Tornadus likely will be going down to Betty by Town here. Or Anthony will be calling the Tornadus swapping out, and the Amoonguss will be leaving the field for this Ursaluna to come in.
Yep, and the Ursaluna maybe comes in one turn after it might have liked to, to get the maximum number of turns for Trick Room, but still going to be in an extraordinarily threatening position for the last couple of turns of the Trick Room. While time will have to tell, will Tornadus be able to take this +1 Ice Beam? Many of them can, and this one does. Just living in the red health, but that Bleakwind Storm just not doing the kind of damage that you really needed to.
Yeah, not the most incredible. That Covert Cloak definitely not giving Bleakwind the oomph it sort of has in some other matchups where it might have that Sky Plate or the Sharp Beak item that many people are seeming to run on a lot of these teams recently.
Yeah, I mean, we already see it on Anthony's side, and now for this Ursaluna, it's really just which slot do you want to take a KO into this turn?
Yeah, as this Iron Crown does go for the Protect, not wanting to use its Terra to get out of that ground weakness or go into the neutrality towards Facade. However, the Facade will be going into the Tornadus to take it out, and Patrick will be able to get a free switch in as this Porygon 2 goes for Ice Beam, potentially calling the Landorus switch in the hopes that he would be able to take it out despite the -1 Facade potentially not picking up, though I believe it very likely still would have. But this Porygon 2 is looking pretty low. We'll have to see what is able to happen on these next couple turns as the Indeedee switches back in.
Just not the most inspiring position if you're on Patrick's side. This should be the last turn of Trick Room, if nothing else, which is in and of itself a victory for Patrick.
Yes.
The difficult part is that the Indeedee has yet to take a turn of sleep. It's guaranteed to be asleep this turn. And it really just comes down to getting this call correct. Do you stay in with the Iron Crown? Do you Terrastalize to the Dragon type to get rid of the ground weakness? Do you swap that into the Landorus so that it can be immune to the ground moves? But any of one of those solutions, you are just risking losing a Pokemon in that slot to the double up of Headlong Rush and Ice Beam. As we see the Indeedee stay
Iron
asleep.
Crown not go for the Terra, and Anthony calls it properly. Going for the Headlong Rush in the Iron Crown despite so many options, urging you to click Facade into that slot. If the Landorus were to switch in, or if the Iron Crown were to Terra, the Facade just do more damage in both situations. But both players really, I think, calling each other on that one, trying to say, which thing am I going to do? I'm going to make you call the least, the option that you least want to choose. Because as an Ursaluna, you never really want to be clicking Headlong Rush, as you're lowering your own defense as you go. And Ursaluna known for its pretty decent bulk, as this Landorus comes back out and lowers the Ursaluna's attack by 1, so this Ursaluna now at -1, -1, -1 in 3 different stats. However,
and
it can swap out.
It can, and if I may, also has that -1 speed from a Bleakwind Storm drop in
Very
the Trick
true.
Room.
Very true. 4x -1.
Now, it's really going to come down to how much damage can you get out of this Landorus. It looks like that was going to be the helping hand for this Earthquake. Will it be enough to pick up the Porygon 2? It will!
It is! Wow, and then we will see just an Amoonguss in this endgame versus the Landorus and the Shadow Ball Indeedee. We will have to see. Will this Amoonguss be able to take home the gold for the rest of this game?
It's going to be very tricky for this Amoonguss just to get enough damage on the field, as the Indeedee, I didn't even realize that, did not faint to the Earthquake, still has another turn to exist on the field, which is, I mean, a win just by itself if you're
Helping
Anthony.
hand, yep.
It's going to be the helping hand. Unfortunately, we also saw the Amoonguss just click a pretty cheeky Protect here, allowing Patrick to pick up the KO on his own Indeedee, but still, this Amoonguss's only damaging move is going to be the Sludge Bomb, resisted by Landorus because of the ground typing. Yes, you can put that Pokemon to sleep, but every turn that Landorus is asleep, the Amoonguss can't poison it.
It's a turn that's not getting poisoned, exactly. And we will be seeing Anthony considering giving up on this turn, however, using this time to try and figure out what he will be doing going into Game 3, as he still has not quit out of this game. He is still deciding a very thoughtful person on Anthony's side.
I've always said that about him.
Going out of the game now, not as thoughtful as we might have given him credit for. However, we will have to see what each player does to switch up. As we saw this time, Patrick didn't bring this Urshifu that we both said in game one was positioned relatively well to be able to get some damage out and be able to sort of make some of these trades happen later in the game. But we saw as it happened in this one, this Landorus seemed to be the difference maker.
Yeah, just being able to click your strong Choice Banded spread moves, and like we saw in that turn one, really prioritizing those pieces on Anthony's side very, very well. Just getting rid of the Incineroar, setting up for not only your Iron Crown, but your Landorus to win in the end game, regardless of kind of what Pokemon were present on Anthony's side. And kind of like you had mentioned too, the Headlong Rush, forcing that move to be clicked into your Iron Crown, proved to be very beneficial for Patrick as well. I don't think that Earthquake is going to pick up that Ursaluna if it's at a neutral defense from that range, say 70 to 75% of his HP left. Even a Choice Band Earthquake I don't think is going to get you there.
Yeah, and also a very interesting distinction that we saw in game two. From that game one, Anthony was very willing to click that fake out into Urshifu and break its focus sash, despite the potential threat of Psychic Terrain coming out. However, in game two, when the Landorus, which normally in Psychic Terrain would still be able to be faked out due to its flying type, we saw Anthony choose to not go for that. I think potentially trying to call Patrick terastallizing and swapping into the Indeedee as a potential way of getting around any of those moves. We saw him not click the fake out, so we'll see if going into game three he decides this time to click fake out. As we see the leads for both players, as this Indeedee and the Landorus comes out, very, very timely. However, we will now see the same lead from Anthony as in game two, that seemed to go pretty decently for him, but ended up not being enough to get him there in the end of the game.
Yeah, it really just ended up Anthony not preserving the HP on his Porygon 2 in or out of Trick Room, and Patrick is getting through the Trick Room there in that second game. As it looks like we're seeing Anthony potentially learning from his mistakes there.
And clicking fake out this time. Now, the only way that Patrick would be able to get around this would be terastallizing his Landorus into a Steel type. Now, however, if you terastallize Landorus into a Steel type, this Ursaluna is then in a prime position to start clicking Earthquake as freely as it wants.
Absolutely. And even the Incineroar, just clicking a Flare Blitz into you, yes, it has gotten its attack drop by one stage, but still going to do a pretty hefty chunk into a Pokemon who is weak to that attack. I'm curious to see how this turn's going to play out, as it is going to be an immediate helping hand into this Landorus. I love the gumption on Patrick's side. Just unfortunately not going to get anything done here with the Landorus this turn, but
very, very ballsy, I might say, as well. If this Porygon 2 had just decided to go for the Terra Flying to sort of get around the potential Earthquake there. Because I'm not sure if that Rock Slide would have picked up on the Incineroar, especially due to being non-stab, a weaker move, all of that good stuff. As the Landorus decides to swap out here.
That was an Earthquake on turn one. I think we all know that.
Yeah,
100%, 100% that was the Earthquake.
I'm saying if the Porygon 2 had to say, oh, now we see the Ogerpon come back in. The first time we've seen it this game, we had both thought that maybe it was not going to be coming to this set, but it has decided to.
No, and Anthony will terastallize his Porygon 2 into the Flying type on this turn. Very curious to see what attack comes out here.
Yeah. If we do end up seeing a Terra Blast come into one of these slots, where will it be? Directly into the Indeedee, and that will do just about half to the Indeedee, as the Incineroar goes for knockoff and does the rest. This Indeedee is down for the count.
Yeah, so no more redirection on Patrick's side, but crucial victories for him is not allowing this Ursaluna to get on the field under Trick Room. Every turn that you are able to prevent that from happening, I think is going to be a pretty valuable turn here. And I think you may have been trying to signal to me, Calvin, there is still Follow Me available for Patrick's
on this Ogerpon, and that's the key part here. We've been seeing a lot of Ogerpons dropping, or Ogerpon Hearthflames at least, dropping Follow Me recently in favor of more offensive pieces like Swords Dance or Focus Energy or even a third attack in some cases. But this one's staying tried and true to the Ogerpon, going for Follow Me, as maybe trying to force Anthony to call an Ice Beam into the Landorus, but Anthony doesn't care. He just goes for the Terra Blast into Ogerpon, and it will live despite that. But the U-turn will be it's not enough to take it out. No, that did nothing.
At -2 attack now with the 2 Intimidates from Landorus. Extremely excited to see what move the Landorus locked into on this turn. If this is something like the U-turn to allow it to come back in and reset another Intimidate on the Ursaluna, that would be very valuable. It is just going to be a Rock Slide, and you can see even super effective into the Porygon 2. just not enough damage.
Rockslide doing a very appreciable amount of damage, though. But now Anthony is in a very good spot to just sort of say, I can click whatever attack I want to into this Ogerpon Hearthflame, and your Landorus will be a sitting duck after it. However, I don't think we've seen the speed interactions between the Ursaluna and the Porygon 2 yet this game, if I'm not mistaken. So we're not quite sure which Pokemon on Anthony's side will go first and will be able to take out this Ogerpon to know which one will do the damage into the Landorus, whether you click Facade or click that Ice Beam into it. However, we see the Spiky Shield come out on Ogerpon's side as Ursaluna goes for the Earthquake, I think in the hopes of just being able to do enough damage and not get hit by the Spiky Shield in case the Facade or the Headlong Rush went into that. However, we will be seeing this Porygon 2 going for Ice Beam, and that will definitely be enough to pick up the Landorus.
Yeah, no Terastallization on Patrick's side. I mean, you would have to imagine it's likely the Iron Crown is the fourth Pokemon here. So, a very heads-up play from Anthony, recognizing that eventuality and recognizing that even if it's not the Iron Crown, the only way for this Landorus to exist on that turn in front of the Porygon 2 is to Terastallize into a Steel-type. Earthquake plus Ice Beam into that slot will guarantee the KO into pretty much anything that Patrick might have in the back. And now Patrick still has to get through one more turn of Trick Room before being able to do any type of damage into Anthony's side of the field.
Yep, he will be able to protect this Iron Crown to make sure that it will stay safe. However, this Ogerpon will be going down to this Earthquake, as we saw Anthony lock in the Recover on P2, so he will have a full health Porygon 2, as well as a mostly healthy Ursaluna in front of just this Iron Crown left, and Anthony still having both this Amoonguss and the Incineroar in the back. I fear this Iron Crown might have an extremely uphill battle ahead of it, with no Terra Blast to be able to do a significant amount of damage to this Assault Vest Incineroar that has not really been damaged yet.
No, it's and with Psychic Terrain ending there too,
away.
it's a really unfortunate position if you're an Iron Crown here.
Yeah.
You know, not the kind of Pokemon, especially outside of Psychic Terrain, that's really known for being able to pull off the 1 versus 4 comeback, but you know, we're seeing Patrick play it out.
Yeah. And respect to that. We'll have to see what ends up happening and what damage is able to be done with this Iron Crown, if it will be able to come back. I don't think the odds are very likely, but hey, if there's any chance, you might as well play for your outs, correct? As we see the Tachyon go into Porygon 2
even
and
two
do just
critical hits.
pittance of damage.
Yes.
As the Trick Room comes out, and as we did see before, this Incineroar will be faster than the Iron Crown here. However, Incineroar is free to just go for the Fake Out as the Psychic Terrain has gone away.
Yeah, it gives you a little sense into how these Pokemon are trained. You know, Anthony in that game too maybe was thinking that his Incineroar, even with how fast it is, could survive that -1 Choice Band Earthquake. But knowing how fast the Incineroar has been trained and how slow this Iron Crown is, gives us a little bit more insight into these trainers' decisions.
Yeah.
But unfortunately not going to be able to pull off the quadruple protect on the Iron Crown. Will we get hit by the Ice Beam?
Praying for those odds as we see the Ice Beam come out, do just a little bit of damage, and this Flare Blitz will end up not picking up the rest, not potentially the most attack invested in Incineroar on Anthony's side. However, the Iron Crown did go for that protect and it failed, did not matter. Patrick just playing to entertain the masses at home.
Yes, but at this point, you only need the double protect to get outside of Trick Room once again.
And then once again do no damage.
And then once again do no damage. But if you, from this range of health, double critical hit the Tachyon Cutter into the Porygon 2, maybe we'll get you there.
Yeah, so one thing that we are still missing here is the Iron Crown is slower than the Incineroar, so even if you got out of Trick Room, the Iron Crown would still be in a speed sandwich here, unfortunately.
That's
so
really
so many
unfortunate.
things really against this Iron Crown at this point in the game, but a wonderful game from both players. We loved getting to see them play, and we'll hopefully get to see some more from both these players later on in the Top Cut.
Yeah, two very strong teams, piloted by two very strong players. And, you know, it just comes out that in that 3-game set, Anthony Lonergan and his tried and true Porygon 2 and Ursaluna, just a little bit too much for the Iron Crown to handle.
Yeah.
Will get us done with round 1 and moving on to round 2 after just a short break. Don't go anywhere.
We'll see you soon.